So I'd like to call this meeting to order. One, two, three. Okay, call this meeting to order. Would someone move item 1.02, please?
Move it.
Second.
Are there any additions or corrections?
There's one additional resolution for your consideration. It's a personnel matter.
Okay, thank you. Any other items? Okay, Mrs. Perry, I'm a yes.
Okay. Okay. Mr. DeJarme?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mrs. Lyons?
Yes.
Mrs. Albagore?
Yes.
Mr. Cordone?
Yes.
Before I go any further, Sam was unable to join us this evening. He had a work commitment. I need to let everybody, just remind everyone, public forum, you can contact the board through email clerk@fulton.cnyric.org. Item number 1.04, please.
Move it.
Second.
Discussion? Mrs. Perry, I'm a yes.
Mr. DeJarme?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mrs. Lyons?
Yes.
Mrs. Albagore?
Yes.
Mr. Cordone?
Yes.
Under President's Report, the Safety and Security virtual meeting is the subcommittee. There's a wellness meeting and then the regular board meeting December 8th. I also wanted to remind you all that in your email, you should have received an update from Central New York School Boards Association, and it's an update on all the activities that are going on with that organization. I have nothing else, so unless somebody has any questions. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Polvino.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's board meeting. It's been an interesting week and a half here in the Fulton City School District with a number of, obviously with the COVID case. We'll talk a little bit about just where we're at. Most of the reports are verbal this evening. First thing is the reopening update pointed out to me the other day. We're in a marking period now, so it's not, is it reopening anymore, or is it continuing the good work we've gotten to this point? I mean, our percentage is less than, I think it's 0.006%. It's very consistent with what's going on out in the community as far as school. However, what I wanted to start off with this morning, and I'd be remiss, and I actually typed up my words this evening because I didn't want to lose them, but I need to send some special thanks and gratitude, especially this time of year, for the leads on everything COVID and everything in between. So to our COVID coordinator, also in his second job as the athletic director, that's the second job now, it's not the first one, to Chris Ells and Jerry Geithner, you really have taken the leads. And I want to point that out. And one of the things that we've learned is that you have to have two very talented point people to keep us focused, because there are so many things that come along with COVID. In each case, it's essential. And so the two of them have provided leadership that's just been outstanding. So I wanted to start off with that. And then I want to also thank the rest of my team, our amazing school nurses. What they're dealing with and the input that they're having is helping us be stronger each and every day. They're really giving us some great feedback. Chris is always communicating and sharing what's on their minds, and they really have a good pulse on our work. All the administrators, you may have seen the email that came to you a little bit earlier this evening. There was a press release, a 3-page press release. In the last 24 hours, we met with the Department of Health through Chris Todd at their request, and the school districts are now going to be they're going to be doing the phone calls. The Oswego student, it says at the beginning of it is Oswego County students and staff members who have been exposed to COVID-19 at their school may be notified by their local school district. This was a piece where the Department of Health has gotten very extended with all of the different roles and things that they're having to deal with COVID. They reached out and asked for our school district's support across the 9. All were more than willing to do that. I will say here in Fulton, we were contacting our staff and students in each case anyway. We didn't want the Department of Health being the first contact with that. So it was sent to you in a separate email. I got it about, I want to say around 4:40 or 5 o'clock, right around there. And I did forward it to the board so you can read that. I won't read it. They're very gracious in their words. Our public health director, Dr. Lipke, they all are very appreciative. We're also very appreciative of the work that they're doing as well. I also want to extend my thanks and gratitude to our students, their families, and our staff. This is not easy. One of the things I wrote down, this is truly a time that is taxing socially and emotionally for everyone. You know, more and more, you know, I think when they see the robocall coming from the Fulton district, everybody takes a deep breath. And I think that's going on across the region. Each of the districts has shared that. You know, you wake up in the morning and you hope, and I'm to the point where I try not to even jinx myself late in the afternoon and say, gee, we haven't gotten anything. But you never know when you're going to get that phone call throughout the course of the day, which creates immediate action and immediate communication to get the accurate information out. And I think that's something that we want to continue to reinforce, is that the school district will provide the most accurate and timely information possible. I also want to reinforce the importance of mask wearing. I want to reinforce the importance of hand washing, use of the hand sanitizer, and strongly encouraging our students and our district staff to stay home when experiencing any symptoms. And when you look at cases, not only in our district, but across the region, a majority, if not, you know, like high percentages are coming into our schools. And the testing isn't showing anything in some of the regions to our south and in lower parts of the state, because if everybody's following the rules, nobody should be in school when they're having any symptoms or feeling sick. So one would expect that we would have that. And that's why I think our schools are safe. I think if we were finding school districts where we were getting high percentages, I think you'd be saying something's not going right with their plan or with their implementation. But based on Dr. Fauci, I believe, wrote something yesterday, as well as what you're seeing in the state, the percentages in school districts remain low to this point. And as soon as I say something like that, something will happen. So I'm knocking on my desk, which is made out of wood. So hopefully that's the case. But I want to just put that out there, that I think it's so important we continue to reinforce those pieces. Also, 2 of the symptoms that we're starting to see more and more are headaches and fatigue. And some of the individuals, when they've done the tracing, have said, I was just tired. I had a mild headache, but I often have one, not realizing that those may have been some of those symptoms. So you have to be very, very in tune with what they are and be very open. We don't want people coming to school if they're not feeling well, or to work not feeling well. So again, we're going to continue to reinforce that. And in addition, we've also shared the holiday travel guidance with all of our staff. I also reinforced that in the video message, I believe, that went out Friday night to everyone. I also provided that again in your link in your daily update, because I'm not sure I attached the daily update on Friday. I was looking and I'm not sure it was there. You had lots of other documents, but I'm not sure it was there. So you also had that in your link yesterday. So for your viewing pleasure over Thanksgiving, if you want to watch the superintendent talk about COVID, it's available to you. So that's really important. And again, I think the team has been doing that. I want to share a piece of data with you that I put together earlier today, but I want to just share it with you that I went back and I looked at the end of the month, each month, just to give us an idea. And I wanted to share this publicly, that on August 28th, there were 3 cases on that day. There were 58 people in quarantine, and 298 cases of positive COVID had been identified from February to that date. You fast forward to October 30th, we had 10 cases that day, 242 people, up from 58, and 790 cases. That was up from 298. Now we fast forward, so that would have been Halloween Day. If you fast forward to the 20th, which was last Friday, we had 52 cases, 1,057 in quarantine, and 1,357 positive cases. And then the data that came out this afternoon, we had 57 cases today, 1,124 in quarantine, and 1,560 cases. So we had roughly 300 on August 28th, and that had been from March, the beginning of March through the end of August. So that's a solid 5 months. And then we're in November, less than a month and a half, we've gone from 300 cases, 298, to 1,560 cases. And then the daily quarantine. So not only do we need to be cognizant of the positive cases, there's a lot of positive cases in our county, but we also have to be cognizant of the fact that the quarantine numbers have gone up significantly as well. So when we say, gee, they're closing because, oh, they had a positive case, there are cases, I believe we had one in the last couple of days, and correct me if I'm wrong, team, I believe it involved multiple teachers of upwards of 6, I believe, and upwards of, I believe, 40 cases just to one case. So when you start to extrapolate that out, you can see why the districts have been asked to make the phone calls to add support, because if you have 60 cases in a day and they each have 20 contacts, that's 1,200 phone calls. So you have to start to look at the magnitude of this thing. So I just wanted to share that because I found that interesting, and it really brings you to reality about where we're at as a county. But our transmission in the schools is very consistent. With others, it's extremely low. So what's going on inside the schools is going well, but obviously any case and any quarantines that come out of those cases with preliminary or primary contacts really creates a real sense of anxiety, fear. You know, today you received the information with respect to Volney and GRB. You know, so that's 5 of our 6 schools. We had 1 case, but multiple things. We've been very conservative, but again, I think we're doing a good job with it. Obviously, we strive and we sit down after the meetings or after we do the communications. We often debrief. We talk the next day, and I'm going to stop talking for a minute because I don't know if Chris or Jerry or the rest of the team would like to say anything, but the uniqueness of these cases, every case is different. It's like putting a jigsaw puzzle together. Some are like really the beginner jigsaw puzzles don't have very many pieces, and then we've got the jigsaw puzzles that involve many, many different pieces. And with that, I don't know if Chris or Jerry, you want to add anything to that? Guess not. Yeah, Chris, you want to say anything or?
Well, since you put me on the spot, I feel like I have to say something. So, you are correct. Whenever there's a case, each case has to be seen individually. So what we did at one school might not work for the other school. That is definitely causing some confusion. And we just have to remind our parents that every case is different. It really depends on time of exposure, date of exposure. And it just, it really goes, we really have to dive into it and see what that happens from there. And just going back to the symptoms, it's really, really important for people to understand at this point that anybody with a symptom shouldn't come to work or come to school. And there's so many symptoms on that list. There's 14 different symptoms. We just need to make sure that, that little headache that we've had, that is one of the symptoms. And like you said before, but the runny nose or the little cough or the sore throat, those are all symptoms as well. And it's important for people to stay home and check with their healthcare provider on next steps.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Chris. The next thing I had on here was just to talk a little bit about the microclusters. Right now, Oswego County is not identified as a microcluster, but I wanted to let you know that DOH, Department of Health, and Dr. Morgan's team have been just stellar working with us. But as I mentioned before, they are at capacity. We have been preparing in the event that we are identified as a microcluster. I'm not going to go and do a dissertation into what a microcluster is, but if you've seen just to our south, we started watching as early as New York City what was going on down near there when they created the first microcluster areas of orange and yellow and red. We watched and been trying to reach out to school districts in Broome County as well as Monroe County. Chris has been having some meetings and trying to find out exactly kind of what have they gone through, what was successful, what were costs associated with. So we're really trying to piece this together. School districts definitely will be the lead. The Department of Health is very stretched and can offer limited support, but it's really going to be on school districts working together and really learning about this. So we're working closely with Dr. Morgan's office as well. We're looking at Onondaga County is really a very different county to compare us to. They've had a very different approach through their county executive. They have different levels of resources. They're a bigger county. There's a lot of different variables there. So oftentimes in conversations, I've been asked like, well, in this county, they're doing that. Well, but there are different variables. And just like Chris was talking about the uniqueness of every case, the uniqueness of the partnerships and the resources are very different when you cross into different counties. It's very interesting to hear the stories. And so as we gather information, we've been mobilizing and really trying to get our head around if we were to move into a yellow zone, which will require the 20% testing of students and staff in person, voluntary testing. We would do a survey. We would do all those things to see, do we have the level of voluntary participation that is required to do that? And then the next thing would be to mobilize a plan and see if we can put together a plan that we were able to do that level of testing with the level of supports through labs and whatnot to be able to do that. So that's where we're at right now with that. We've been mobilizing and trying to wrap our head around in preparation and learning from others. Chris, would you add anything to that piece, or Jerry? I think that's kind of the really good summary of kind of where we're at. But
I think you got it all, Brian.
okay. Just to give you an example, some districts are reaching out to third parties to do the testing, nursing organizations or medical organizations or labs or things like that at costs. And so, even though the state says you can get the test for free, you have to figure out a way to get them processed. You have to make sure that you have, I think the term and access to testing and limited use licensure. I'm learning way too much about the medical field. And so it's called limited use licensure, meaning you have to team up with a lab or the county, and they have to have the licensure for those types of tests, whether they are short naval tests or the deeper one. The nasal tests are what most districts are using, the shorter one, but some are using the saliva test. But the level of accuracy goes down as you, based on the different types of tests that are out there. Again, that's why I'm not the medical person in my family. I'm the educator. So I don't know a lot. I'm learning about it. And we'll keep the board informed if we moved into those zones. I know that Oswego County was not mentioned, but I know that that there has been some articles in the county around that. I know there was an article from in the city of Oswego talking about that their percentages were getting up there, and I know that in the county they are as well. So again, I just wanted to let the board know that we are mobilizing and we'll keep you informed, and we will do this in the most cost-effective, efficient manner, and we would share those plans before we move forward with anything with the board. Are there any questions around microclusters or any of those pieces that we can ask? Or if not, we'll move on, and we'll keep our fingers crossed that we'll be reopening on December 1st to in-person. Hopefully we have a good, strong Thanksgiving and we make it through and we come out the other side. The team will be continuing to work with DOH and all of those pieces right through the end of the week and into the next week. So hopefully if things change, we'll communicate efficiently, effectively, first to the board, then to our staffs, and then to our community, which has been our standard procedure, and we try to do that as quickly as possible. Okay. That was a mouthful, but a lot there. Again, and the people I didn't thank is my board. Thank you. You've been a terrific board. This has not been easy. You're probably tired of texts and emails late afternoon, sometimes early in the morning, especially when things go out inaccurately through the media. So we have forged a new relationship with our news media as well. So everything happens for a reason. The second piece that we have on our report tonight is winter athletics. Mr. Ells, you want to join me as the actual athletic director this time?
It's so nice to talk about sports.
So I will preface this by, right now things are still up in the air a bit, but Chris is going to present us where we're at right now. So go ahead, sir.
So I'm going to share with you. I just typed up a little bit for you just to see the timeline that we're working with here. Okay, so winter athletics for 2021. So New York State Department of Health listed sports to be low, moderate, or high, depending on physical distancing, low use of shared equipment, and minimized contact. So the DOH, back in July, when they came out with the reopening plans, they determined what each sport would be. And for the winter sports, they recommended low to moderate sports for the sports of swimming, bowling, and indoor track. After that, the high-risk sports of basketball, wrestling, competitive cheer, and hockey were added. So those are low to moderate and then our high-risk sports. From there, the New York State Public High School Athletic Association, here on TV, approved low to moderate sports to begin on November 30th. And then high-risk sports to begin on January 4th. From there, Section 3 then approved low-risk sports and low-risk and moderate sports to begin on December 14th and postponed high-risk sports to January 4th. In addition to that, the sport of indoor track has been postponed indefinitely due to lack of facilities. We use the facilities of OCC in Herkimer, and neither one of those campuses are opening to outside people. So at this time, we would just be looking at our two sports of bowling and swimming, mainly just because, we can add more social distance in there. Bowling has the bowling alleys are open with physical distancing there. They don't share equipment with the bowlers. Every one of our bowlers have multiple bowling balls. So the use of shared equipment is, off the table there. So.
Yeah, I think to reinforce, we're not ready to make a final decision. If you had asked us, I think Chris and I were talking, was it 2 to 3 weeks ago, Chris? We said we would have felt relatively comfortable trying to move forward with where we were at. But with the data that's going on around us, we're going to take advantage of that 14th and really see what happens over the next week or so. This thing needs to get under control a bit more, because even talking about pools and bowling alleys are still talking about the physical distancing, and there would have to be very strict guidance. We've also have set up, when is that preliminary meeting with the kiddos? It's on
December 1st.
December 1st.
Yep.
We did want to meet with the kids, and we said we were going to come back around. We've talked with some very specific guidance, what would have to happen. That was 2 or 3 weeks ago. But now with this going on, I think that superintendents across the region are going to have to take a very good look at this. Because if we don't get this under wraps, it's going to start impacting schools more and more and more, and you're seeing that. So I think that's why we're reinforcing. We've got to get this thing back on the rails. We were in a very good place. We were a really good place before the end of October, and then as we've gone through November, I felt pretty good after the first week of November, a little less, and now in this third or fourth week, we're seeing this magnitude of cases on a daily basis. And it's the quarantines as well. You got to look at all those pieces. I'm hearing some things out in the community of some employers that are starting to have some more issues. So there's a lot of dynamics here. After we meet with the kids, and that we'll continue to meet with Dr. Morgan, and then I'm gonna we'll make a decision on the 8th for that board meeting. We'll be able to make a better decision about where we're at that point in time. It's frustrating, because I think as schools, we're in a good place when you look at the percentages, but when you look at what comes into a school, that's families, that's students who have then connections to many other parts of the community through their parents' work, through family. There are so many connections. That's why if it was just in the microcosm of the Fulton City School District, we could kind of, what's the term they use in this pro sports, Chris? The bubbles. They create the bubbles. It's hard to create a bubble when everybody doesn't stay in your bubble. So I think as we get more information, we'll get more clarity about what's the best decision as we move forward. Would anything you'd add to that, Chris?
Ryan,
No.
I was just going to ask a question about, if we were to bring, we're recognizing that other districts, how's it determined who's it safe to have a contest with?
Yeah, Dave, I think I got.
Has there been conversation?
It broke up. Was the question? Give me a wave if I got it right. If we're participating and competing at other schools, how would we decide who we compete against? Was that what I caught that at the end?
Yes, and using the data to support that.
Sure. So we did have a discussion with that within our league. We had a league swim meeting the other day. And we discussed, the possibility of, if a school is in a yellow zone, would we actually compete, in person with that team, or would we do a virtual swim meet, which nobody really wants, or we could look at, a rescheduled meet. That's a sport you can do. And the same with bowling. You could do those virtually and keep our kids together. Obviously, having, kids, next to each other in a lane is actually better for competition. But as we found out in the fall, our kids want to play. And they want to get out there and they want to, mix it up with their friends. And we saw that, all October when we, allowed those training sessions that we did. So if a school goes into the orange zone or into a red zone, that's an automatic. I mean, that's by New York State. We don't compete against them. So we would first, any orange zone, we would look at doing a, either a reschedule or a virtual meet or match at that point.
Did that get most of it, Dave? I think we got most of the question.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, it does. It captures
Okay.
it. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, anything, it's safety first. And I think the same thing goes with all our extracurriculars. I mean, we're trying to create as much normalcy. I think we made a good decision for the fall. I think a lot of teams started to have some issues toward the end of September, early October. We've also talked about the fact that if we were to compete in person, we are a mask-wearing district. We wear them all day, and I'll be honest with you, I think it's one of the reasons why we've had success. I know it's been hard on our staff, our administrators, our families, our kids, but it's been the right thing because if you've noticed, there were some other districts that have chosen to go that direction recently. I think it helped us get as far as we did. We are a small city. And many small cities were having some problems greater than we were having early on. So I think we made some really great decisions. And I think as we move forward in everything we do, athletics, extracurricular, we need to continue to do that. I'm hoping that the accelerator, the throttle starts to let off a little bit with COVID. I'm hoping the numbers start to go down. Our kids were amazing doing what they needed to do this fall out on the fields and doing all the things that they did. I really appreciate what they did. I know I'm not worried about our kids as much as I'm worried about other places. They need to be like districts with similar philosophies, I think are important as well. Because we're about keeping each other safe in the classroom, on the fields, on the stage, anything that we're doing. So we'll keep you apprised of where we're at. That was a good question, Dave. Thank you.
Chris,
Thank you,
I just have a quick
Brian, are we
question
also
here.
looking into,
Fallon, yep, go ahead.
okay, what about staff and coaches? What if they live in a yellow zone or a micro cluster? How are we tracking that and identifying those?
Great question.
I mean, one of the things that somebody talked to me and I thought was very, very, it goes from our area down into an orange zone now and works. And I appreciate that. I mean, there's been no guidance from the state about allowing, not saying people should be traveling from yellow or orange zones. I think that's where this is my opinion, it's where our procedures come into play, making sure that the screening, our staff completes the screening accurately, that we accurately screen our kids coming in, but we also make sure that we're reinforcing all of those key points: mask wearing, hand washing, hand sanitizing, and making sure that we're not coming to school sick or working sick. I think those are the key elements. But there's been no guidance with respect to traveling out of or into an orange or yellow zone that I am aware of. Chris, is there anything I'm missing on that?
No, there isn't any restrictions at this time, but I understand Ms. Cooper's concern there or question. So
Yeah, or even just, do we have backup if, let's say, a coach for bowling or swimming has to quarantine, and are we going to have enough staff for backup for those issues?
All the things we've been thinking about as well. Yep, exactly. Those are all the things that come into that play. Yep.
Great.
Brenda, you had a question, right?
I did. Actually, I really think that virtual swimming bowling thing is like thinking outside the box. I would have never have thought of that, but I think that's brilliant. If that comes down to the way that our kids can participate in those two sports, I think that's awesome. My question though is when we get into those higher risk sports, and I know you don't have a definite answer at this point and things can change at any time, but if it comes down to our kids being able to participate in these activities, what does that look like for like our spectator look, or how are we going to approach that? Because it would be more important for our kids to be playing, but bringing in all these outside people. So how does that look?
So right now it looks like 2 spectators per athlete. But remember, we have those restrictions put on by the governor on how many people can be in a space at one time. So we're not sure if we can even match that up. So we might actually, we would have to maybe stagger start our JV and our varsity games, where we would have JV varsity or JV basketball game, and then have 3 hours later start the varsity game. We used to overlap those games. We would actually have to stagger those starts, so we would have time to clear the gym, clean the areas, and get the other team in there. So we could look at items like that. And as far as spectators, if we continue going to the road that we're going right now, it's going to be a no spectator, at least in Fulton. I can't imagine us trying to bring, people from the outside in. We have cameras in our gym that are automatic cameras. They're like kind of robotic cameras that follow the action of the play. And those are already set up in our gyms, and that is now a free subscription. It started this year, so you can log on and see our games live. It's a 30 to 40 second delay, but they're live games, so that could be an option for our spectators.
Yeah. So I guess
I did have a couple questions, and this is probably I'm sure you're looking into this too, but you have that modified group too that are curious as to what their season looks like.
Right. Right now for swimming and bowling, we only have varsity. So we don't have that modified group again. And right now those sports aren't approved to move forward. Those high risk sports aren't approved to move forward. So we need to have the state give us more guidance on that, or actually give us clearance to actually start those activities. Again,
the data needs to get a whole lot better, and again, if we were to move forward, I think we did the right. And again, I think the way to do this is, again, I'm not as worried about our own kids as I am what's happening in other districts. And when I hear, every district has different DNA, different approaches, different philosophies. Mine is safety first. I'm a little slow and conservative because I want to be safe. And I think we've got our number one priority is to keep our kids in the classroom, making sure that kids and families have that as one of the options available. And then obviously all of the opportunities that help our kids flourish, that are all those extracurriculars and all those other opportunities. And we have to keep our core strong, or that's when things go south. And that's why, again, Chris and I have been talking a lot about this. I look forward to talking to the kids next week. And then I'm looking forward to, hopefully, fingers crossed, the data going down a bit. But it's really going to depend. They've spiked after every holiday since this whole COVID-19 started. And you go all the way back to Memorial Day, you'll see a little bit of an uptick. You'll see it after 4th of July. You'll see it after Labor Day. Columbus Day, we did not, I think, because it's a lot of maybe more personal family kind of keeping a little different, less large groups. But then we saw it kick up again after Halloween, and we're still feeling it really hasn't come down since Halloween. So about a day or two, it came down about 24, 2 days in a row, and then all of a sudden it went back up again. So more to follow. Again, where Chris is also very active in the athletic domain, And we've also been making a lot of calls that way. And people know that we're firm believers in as high expectations as we can to keep our kids safe. They know that that's the Fulton philosophy right now. So, alrighty. Thank you, Chris. Isn't it nice to talk about athletics instead of COVID?
Great. Nobody wants COVID over more than me.
All right. Nice parent dashboard. We wanted to get that on. Dan, you've had lots of opportunity to get yourself up there. I see you got a new background there too. It looks very collegiate behind you there, and academic rather. So if you could talk about, the New York State announced a parent dashboard in late October, early November. The board had requested some information that's gone live. I've asked Mr. Carroll and Mr. Lisi are going to just walk us right to the website so you can see what that is. It's very similar to the report card dashboard, actually, when you go to it. So, Mr. Lisi and Mr. Carroll. Can't hear you, Dan. Dan, we can't hear you.
Mr. Carroll, would you like me to share the website? Would that be easier? Sure.
I'm not sure it's going to let him talk. That's where you want to go to it, Dom. Can you take it there, please?
Will do.
We'll let Dan maybe go in and out. Maybe Dan, maybe that'll re-engage you. All right, Mr. Lisi, can you walk us through?
Everybody see the site? Is it up for everyone to see? Great. It's on the homepage. So in the lower right-hand portion of the website, just scroll down a little bit. We put the link for the dashboard right here. So it's fairly easy to find. And we've also posted it in Facebook, so you can find the link there. And we've been doing that almost daily. We put the links up for the survey for folks to see the dashboard and to actually fill out the parent survey as well. So those are both there. Just click simple click, and it brings you right to the dashboard. And you can just fill out our school name and you can see the dashboard resources.
Can you put that up? Can you type our name in there and see if it'll take you there?
Try, I have to admit. Let's see here. Oh, there we go.
Dan, do you have volume yet?
Usually takes a good 20 to 30 seconds for this to come up.
Okay. Looks like, Dan, we still can't hear you.
There we go. There's our 2017-18 data.
Just so you know, this was done because of, it was a requirement by the federal government under ESSA. And so this was New York State's response to be able to meet that requirement from the state government.
Hello?
Government.
Oh.
Go ahead, Dan.
I think.
Okay, sorry about that, everyone. Yes, that's right. Well, thanks, Dom. Dom gave you a little bit of tour of what's here. This actually goes back to about 2010, a little bit of history. This was a federal requirement under what was then the Race to the Top grant, when states were required to build parent dashboards. If you recall, back around that same time, we had requirements for teacher evaluation systems linked to student test scores, the introduction of Common Core state standards, and with this large storehouse of student personal data, that really made for three fairly controversial implementations at the same time. And New York State at that time really raced to fulfill a pretty robust personal level student dashboard, which was met with lawsuits in relation to the storage of students' personal data, which, to tie this back to current times, is now the reason why we have Ed Law 2D, which the policy committee is currently looking at our district's policy in relation to. The state's done a lot of study in relation to what a responsible form of a parent dashboard that would be useful to families could be. Actually, Mr. DeJalorme and I attended a session last spring or so, where we gave input into the types of data that parents would be interested in. And this is the result of all that study. Basically, what we have, like Mr. Palvino said, are the main ingredients that have been part of the school report card for years. You can see also, if you notice, the most recent year that you see at the top is 2017-18, not the most current data. And that's generally been the case with the New York State report cards. But this site is the new New York State report card. So in previous years, we've had the responsibility to post each building's updated New York State report card. That has gone away. There is no longer a single New York State report card. It is now this. It's this interactive site that all districts will have available on their district website that parents can interact with. You can click on the assessment results, choose your own school, choose your own grade level, and drill down into some interesting data about your school district.
Yep. And we sent a letter, will be well sent or is going out. I can't remember if it's gone out or not yet as required. I believe it did go out. I think I saw that at the top of the letter. Did that document go out, Mr. Carroll?
That's going out next week.
So we've met all the requirements with respect to this, but it was a request. Do any board members have any questions? I know that it was something brought up. Thank you, because it got us motivated to get it on to this board meeting. I felt like I wanted to be on and make sure that it was out in our community. It's on our website with all components available. Alrighty, no questions? Great. Thank you, Mr. Carroll. Thank you. The next piece on our agenda this evening is the budget update. Ms. Nichols, good to see you back. And what I wanted to say was, right now it looks like, and correct me if I'm wrong, we were looking for some verification. You just want to comment on our November state aid? I know the numbers look very similar to last year, so I'm thinking
excuse me. It would appear that there have not been any withholdings from the November payments to school districts. So it's still a wait and see. We reported to you in the middle of September that there had been some state aid withholdings that affected affected last year, but funds that we were supposed to receive in August and September. So right now we don't know what's going to happen with that $746,000 that was withheld. But at least the good news is, as of right now, the payments expected were received in November. So again, it's actually, I don't know if it has to do with the election or whatever, but it certainly is a little bit quiet when it comes to any more information on state aid withholding. So, Brian, anything else on that? Or?
Yeah, no, nothing else on the state aid. I think the biggest thing is we met with small cities. I had a meeting with Senator Mayer and her team last week. I believe I provided an update, but it was not a lot of pieces there as far as any new information. They're very well aware. They did strongly recommend that we continue to lobby with our U.S. Senators Schumer and Gillibrand, so that they are aware of all of the challenges in our districts. But it's always helpful to do that. So that may be something that we want to do. I know that I've been sending you a lot of information with respect to the rural schools, which are just a fun read on top of great information. But also I sent you the Annapolis piece yesterday, which continue to reinforce that sales tax revenues continue to be a bit low in the state. I find his weekly newsletters, I don't always send them, but when they have lots of depth and breadth, and this week it seemed to have some depth and breadth there. So I thought it was an important one to give you the link to. So if you haven't had the opportunity, there's some very good information in there. So he gives you a pretty good pulse. I mean, he gives you a pretty accurate depiction of what's going on at the state level. It is consistent with what we hear from the governor. We're keeping our fingers crossed with respect to federal stimulus. We've been talking about that for a long time. But perhaps with the change, the impending change, perhaps there'll be a federal stimulus of some sort coming out. I'm really going to be anxious about the December and January. I was talking to Ms. Griffin, I can't believe it was yesterday or today, but we were discussing, I had put out there, my thought is when those budget runs come out, those January budget runs we get, come out, that reflects on the next year's, those anticipated, especially in those areas that are actuals, for example, BOCES aid, transportation aid, capital aid, all of those are those other pieces on top of the foundation aid. So I think that January timeframe is going to be very pivotal because that's when we get the first look at the executive's budget that comes out to us, and that's the budget that we work from in establishing the next year. So I think the next 60 days are going to be an interesting time to see. And if COVID continues doing what it's doing, we hope that it doesn't start to impact businesses and start to impact like it did last summer, But you're seeing already businesses are impacted as early as this week and in the counties to the south, 4 people, so on and so forth. That starts to impact the economy. So it'll be interesting to see how kind of things go over the next 2 months as well. Kathy, do you want me to put up on the screen the summary that you provided to the board earlier today?
Yes, that'd be helpful.
Okay, just one moment, please. Okay, go ahead.
All right, we're still pretty early in our school year. The information that has been provided to the board is in the financials this time is basically through the end of October, which really is, this 2 months out of the 10 months of the school year. So, we review the budget in the business office, basically all the time. And as we look through things, just wanted to point out some of the positives that I guess that we've noticed. First one being instructional substitutes. We had a budget which we had lowered this budget from previous years. So we lowered it to $350,000, and at this point in time, after 2 months, you would have expected us to have spent roughly $70,000. And in the first 2 months of the school year, we haven't incurred that much. We've actually only spent just under $39,000. So there is a little bit of a savings right there.
That just to add on that, I believe is if you remember, we added, we had to get creative to add some remote instructional support, and we're able to do that through this line. So that's worked out well. So in other words, we were looking at the substitute lines as helping us to do that. So even by doing that, we've maintained being below budget to this point, which is great news. And we've been able to provide that direct instruction through our remote learning that we need to do.
Yes. Then I listed just looking at all of our other salaries. Basically, when you look at the monthly reports, you may notice that you may realize that some of the lines, when they have salaried employees, we are able to what we call encumber the salaries. So there might be a budget line that has $1 million, and then there's $1 million worth of salaries, and basically we use up that whole budget line. We reserve it with those individual people, with those individual positions and their dollars, and that's easy to do when you have regular full-time people that earn a base salary, and they're going to get paid the same dollar amount basically every year, every pay period. What's a little bit more difficult are the hourly positions, because some of the hourly employees, even though they're full-time, they may not work 35 hours every single week. They may work 36 or 37 one week. They may work in slightly different positions that cause them to have a different pay rate. So because of that, their salaries aren't, although they're coded to a budget code, we don't encumber the funds because there wouldn't be an accurate way to encumber them. So what we have to do is, and I usually do it at least once a month, is that I annualize the salaries in each budget code and take a good look at to see if I see discrepancies. Helps me make sure that people first are coded in the correct areas, and also to see if for some reason that our budget was perhaps a little light, or perhaps we may end up with a little some extra funds that could be put to use somewhere else. So all I did here was I just listed in the general fund, we spend $32,745,000 is what we've budgeted for salaries this year. And right now, I believe we're on track to be to have enough funds to cover those general fund salaries.
Yeah, I think one of the things, obviously, that's based on the revenues that are anticipated with no impacts, and that's why we're continuing to watch very closely. We're also watching, when we move into these remote learning situations, when we have to do that, obviously we're looking at all of our expenditures at all times, because we know what happened with the governor last year and making some decisions with respect to transportation aid from May 1st through the end of the year and the impacts of that. So we have to monitor this very carefully. We have to watch the state and the federal, what's going on there as far as the revenue streams, as well as what's going on here. So it's good that we're not overspending, we're slightly underspending, but we're watching on a weekly, daily basis what's going on, because those revenue streams are key. And I know that Ms. Geithner will be talking about some of those things later this evening with you. So I just want to preface, I put that out there. The health insurance, Kathy, you want to speak briefly to that?
Yes, just the district's health insurance consultant is providing monthly reports to the district, and as of right now, the good news is that it looks like our health insurance claims are running favorable to the budget. So we're at about 95.2% of the claims. So putting the dollars down, July, August, and September, basically they show us being on the positive of about $155,000. Good news compared to the year that we had last year. So fingers crossed that that's the way it remains. The next area I just want to mention, operations and maintenance. Although we tried to budget tighter here this year, obviously, as you know, that our overall budget's only about $400,000 higher than last year's budget. One of the areas that we really tried to slim down was in operations and maintenance. It still looks, they have a lot of their needs have been encumbered. There's purchase orders out there for the things that they need for the contracts that they have. So they look like they're in good shape that way. I know I believe it was the last meeting that we talked a little bit about some of the COVID related items and the fact that we've been trying to maintain close to a 6-month supply of whether it's PPE or the cleaning supplies, so that we don't fall behind on that. So right now it looks like we're going to have sufficient funds to finish out the year, covering both the regular needs and the COVID related items. Just the next one, I just labeled it as a budget area to just monitor, is our BOCES services. Put down there that we have almost a $9 million BOCES budget, and what our current contract is is just $35,000 less than that. So we're very close in what we thought we'd be spending at BOCES and what we've actually signed up for. Excuse me. We do have.
Go ahead.
We do have, some additional spending there. We're going to have another Chromebook lease, and we will look to other areas of the budget to cover, to do budget transfers if need be. But for the most part, and although that we are signed up for certain services, by the end of the year, there's always adjustments up and down in that. So we're very close, but we still have room other areas if we have to move some funds around, and that will be brought to you as a budget transfer request. And Brian, was there something you wanted to comment on that, or?
No, I just think on the BOCES budget, I've been sitting with some of our larger areas. Mr. Lisi and I have been talking. I met with Ms. Adams around our special education. So we're monitoring things very closely, and also monitoring attendance in those programs, really pressing to make sure that we're getting the maximum benefits out of those dollars, making sure that that's happening. And so we've been going through, I think on a monthly basis, we've been going through each one of those high number areas just to make sure, making sure attendance in those programs, because every dollar counts in those programs as well. Also, one of the things you'll have, hopefully, the board audit committee, we're meeting Monday, I believe it. Is it 3 or 3:30? I believe it is. And we're asking SB from Forecast 5 will be joining us. One of the things you're going to see, and I wanted the audit committee to take a peek at it first, and if you give us feedback, we have a monthly report that I think will be very helpful. It'll help bring things a little bit more colorful, a little bit more graphic, I don't know if that's the right word, with charts and things like that. So you'll be able to see it a little bit better. He's going to share that with you on Monday for your feedback. I think it will be something that will be exactly what you're looking for based on the feedback. The other piece you will see is they're called stories. And what they are is our budget history, our budget, where we've been over the last number of years, where we are now, and then actually it'll allow us to do some forecasting at 5%, 10%, if the board's pleasure is to look at a 20% if we didn't get those revenues this year, as well as forecasting out a number of years, Ms. Griffin. I know that's something we've talked about, and this technology allows us to do that. I am very comfortable with Forecast 5. They've helped us with our transparency reports. Mike Vespi is a former business official. And in our meetings with Kathy, myself, Paula, and Dom, it's been, I find him he fits very well with us, which I think is always helpful when you're working with somebody, because he understands what goes on in our schools. And I think that that's really helpful to help us use this software, because I think it's telling our story is going to be more important than ever before. So I'm kind of leading into that next budget process. So the idea would be we would actually be sharing some of this preliminary data at the December 8th meeting. Those initial stories then would set us up nicely for the December 15th budget workshop. And then obviously leading into January then, when we really start to get moving. But I think it allows us to get a really good feel for where we were. Very interesting to look back at those scary 2008, 9, 10 years. You could see them on the charts. It's very interesting. And those of you that were on the board then, I'm sure you remember that time as a very challenging time. And that's kind of coming back around again. So I think it shows that the history nicely. It will also allow us to tell our story to the community as they try to wrap their heads around whatever our budget is going to look like as far as the revenue streams and how they're going to impact us at the local level. So it kind of brought in the next part of what mine was this evening. I kind of rolled them together here a little bit, but I think providing you a little bit more tangible monthly report that you might feel comfortable with. So I'm looking forward to seeing your feedback. He's going to provide some exemplars. And then he's working on our SR reporting with Kathy and her team right now. That's required. So that's kind of taking right now. We're using their software to help us do that. It's a great organizational tool. It really aligns nicely. And so, and then if you want Mike to come to the December 8th meeting, I'm sure he would. He presented at a couple of other districts recently that he shared with us as well. So I wanted to share that. So I actually went into the budget process there. I did have a question for the board this evening, Ms. Griffin. As far as the budget committee, I do not have a history. How did we look for people to participate from the community level? It's easy enough for me to do at the school district level, but the community level, was there a process or anything, or just wondered if there was any guidance in that area?
Brian, I broke up, so I don't know the whole question. I don't understand it.
So the question really was, we had talked about doing the budget committee format. I was wondering, how did we recruit participants from the community level? Was that done by the superintendent? I mean, just wondering how that process may have been done in years past. Has not been done since I've been superintendent.
It was done by through the superintendent's office, and I would just encourage, if the board members know of someone that may be interested, they could share that name with you, but you're not obligated.
Okay.
But yes.
Okay. Just wanted a little guidance. I figured time is going to fly, and I just wanted to get on that. So we were prepared going into January. Obviously, there's opportunities at the December 8th and 15th meetings for further discussion. So I just wanted to plant that seed and get me thinking correctly.
Brian, I'm wondering if maybe our site-based teams might not kind of advertise to see if there's anybody serving on their teams that might be interested.
Okay.
I have a question.
Resource. Yep. Go ahead, Lynn.
It has to do with the health insurance. It says per report from the district's health insurance claims it's from July to September. Has that gone up since people have had to have COVID tests? I just wondered if we've seen any difference since school started with health insurance claims.
Well, I don't sit in on that meeting. I can ask Jerry to come. I would say to you, last year at this time, and if Mr. Greer was here, he could tell me exactly. I believe on this same report last year, we were at 132%. We were 32% over, and we pushed the game down by the end of the year to about, I think, 118. In years past, we had been riding around 106, 107. So to start the year at 95 is great news, Lynn, as far as comparing an apple to an apple time. Jerry, you sat in on that meeting along with Kathy. Would you provide any light to that?
Yeah, so expenses compared to last year have been lower. What we have paid out and reimbursements has been lower. I can't speak specifically to whether COVID testing is in a line in and of itself that has increased, but I can get that information if the board is interested in coming.
I myself was just interested if people were opting to get tests if they were sick and to come back to school if it reflected on the health insurance claim.
Yeah, I think last year we were higher. I think we were $2 million right around this time over budget that we had projected. And what really saved us was many medical procedures and clinics had closed COVID in the spring. So it kind of helped balance our budget and our costs. So I would also curious to see what our numbers are with the COVID testing. And then I've got two more questions. Lynn, I didn't know if you were done. I'll let you finish, but I do have two more. You're good? Okay. I would also, in the monthly report, I don't know if this is for Brian or Kathy, I would also like to get a monthly report line item on our ongoing costs for COVID. Whether it's PPE or cleaning supplies or things like that. I know we did it at one of the meetings either in September or October. We had some information on what we've paid so far with COVID. I would like that to be monthly just to see additional costs we've incurred as they like. And then also we have talked about the pilot program that formerly was Sunoco and a payment that needed to be made and had not been made. Have we made any room there with that $300,000 payment? Oh, you're muted, Brian.
because I don't normally mute there. We did reach out to our attorney, Colleen Gavitt. I can follow back around Jean. That was one of the questions we had extended. We sent paperwork with respect to that, as well as the solar project up behind Volney. I can't remember the road, but there's a road up behind Volney. Both of those we sent to our attorneys to get Colleen Gavitt involved in that. So we can provide an update. We're going to reach out to our attorney on a couple of things. But we sent her the information, so she has it for the former Sunoco plant as well, because we felt like we needed to. It's been enough months where we wanted to make sure we had her perspective on what we may have to do next.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I just wanted to, I know you'd asked about the monthly report for the PPE cost, and I just a show of hands that the majority of the board wants that, because that's typically how we do. So
Could I also add to that, Robin? I believe that the federal funding also covers substitute coverage, perhaps, for staff that might have COVID-related absences. And I know we really focus a lot on PPE, but as we know, the cost of our organization, the human cost is much higher. So if we can include that as well as what Mrs. Cooper has requested.
Sure.
Okay, and we're all good with that still? Okay, yes.
All right. I had one other thing I was going to write down. So that was the conclusion of the budget process piece. So I'm looking forward to your feedback on Monday. We've had this software for a while. This is the first time we've taken it to Did I just do that? That was weird. It just showed up on my screen. That was kind of strange. Something is wrong. Capital project. If you haven't been watching the pictures, there is base binder down. There is curbing. It's pretty amazing what they accomplished. They put shovels in the ground on September 18th. And here we are. Just great accomplishment. We have posted all of those photographs are on our website. It's a tremendous amount of work. We're keeping our fingers crossed that the top coat, the asphalt companies continue to be open. That would be terrific. If not, the finish would be in the spring. But right now, my understanding is the binder's down. I mean, technically when that's down, it's drivable. It's all those kinds of things. So, but to see what's gone on in the last couple of weeks, the amount of work, it's just amazing. And it looks really good. So we'll continue to provide those updates to you as well. So, and then they'll be putting out the bids early December is when we'll be doing the bids for the work around the doors. We've talked about this before at those schools, as well as some of the masonry and cement pointing, things like that, because that has to be done to ensure that we can then recoup the costs on the site work. So you can't just do site work without that. So with that, that's the conclusion of the superintendent's report this evening. Thank you. And happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Item 4.01, would someone move it?
Move it.
Second.
Is there discussion? Mrs. Perry, I'm a yes.
Mrs. Alvagore,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Crandall,
Yes.
Mrs. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. DeJalorme,
Yes.
and Mr. Cordone.
Yes.
5.01, please.
Move it.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Mrs. Perry, I'm a yes.
Mrs. Alvagore,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Crandall,
Yes.
Mrs. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. DeJalorme,
Yes.
and Mr. Cordone.
Yes.
All right, item number 5.02 is the first reading of a number of policies. And I would like to start with, I had a question regarding policy 1500.0, use of school facilities, materials, and equipment. And in the policy, it says we will have forms available at the school. I wondered if we could also make them available online. I think it makes sense to have them online and printable, and especially during these times. And the other thought that question I had, I didn't know, it says that a request should go in a month in advance. And I was wondering if do we need a month, or would a couple of weeks suffice? And I'm just thinking back, and maybe times have changed, but there was a time when some of these coaches, they do other things during the daytime and then they coach after work. And sometimes they don't get a couple weeks maybe. I don't know that they think about a month. So I don't know if there's a reason for a month request.
Are there contractual obligations for posting, like overtime, Brian?
I'm not sure. That was something Jerry and I would have to look into, see if there's anything specific to that.
That might be why the month, to make
So
sure that there's time in there for that to happen.
So building use forms for gyms, I do know that whenever a building is not open, so like on Saturdays, if somebody wanted to use, say, the junior high and it's not open, there would be overtime costs, and that cost is put back onto the group that is renting the space for that day. In addition, we rarely do we take a month in order to process the forms. But remember, those forms have to go from my office to the coaches to the business office, then to the custodians and the main office. So there is quite a bit of paperwork that follows that.
Okay.
Although, 2 weeks, we've never denied anybody at the 2-week mark either. So 2 weeks could be good, but people will turn in forms and they're not complete. So then we got to get back and forth.
Okay.
So there is some runaround that happens on those as well.
I appreciate that feedback. I wondered why, I just know that there have been people that back in the day, they didn't get them in a month in advance.
And like I said, we've never denied anybody for being under a month.
Okay. All right. So
We've never denied anybody under 3 days. So.
Well, and I not that we want to. I know the district's always been very good. It's been the district's practice for many, many years to help out different agencies that are kid related. So I appreciate that. Okay, that's the only questions I had. Anybody else have any questions or comments on any of the other policies? Okay, moving on to item 6.01. Would someone move it, please?
Move it.
Second.
Discussion? Mrs. Perry, yes.
Mrs. Albagor,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Crandall,
Yes.
Mrs. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. DeJalorme,
Yes.
and Mr. Cordone.
Yes.
6.02, please.
Move it.
Second.
Any discussion? Mrs. Perry, yes.
Mrs. Albagor,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Crandall,
Yes.
Mrs. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. DeJalorme,
Yes.
Mr. Cordone.
Yes.
Item 6.03.
Move it.
Is there a
Second.
Any discussion? Mrs. Perry, yes.
Mrs. Albagor,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Crandall,
Yes.
Mrs. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. DeJalorme,
Yes.
Mr. Cordone.
Yes.
Board forum. Mr. Crandall, would you like to kick us off?
Let's see. Yes, things do look good over at Lanigan, and they are hard workers. I go by there every morning, quarter after 6:30. They're there, and they're ready. When they were doing the curbing, the truck came up the street at 6:30. I went by at quarter after 10. They had it all down, all of it. A little over 2 hours. That's moving.
Very
They're
good.
good. I like that company.
Very good.
Keep them in mind if we have other projects. Well, got to look at the bid though. I think everything's looking good. Just want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. And remember, about a year ago, you were always trying to avoid negative people. Now it's the positive people we're trying to avoid. So things have changed.
Very good, Mr. Crandall. Mrs. Lyons.
I would like to thank Chris for double duty. You're doing a great job. And also, I want to say happy, safe Thanksgiving to everybody too. That's it.
Mr. Cordone?
Yeah, just a couple of questions from parents that I've received regarding the monitoring of student engagement, perhaps, and how attendance, if there are attendance issues, how those are being communicated to parents. It seems like perhaps maybe there was some surprise with the marking period ending and report cards going out, and parents not being notified if there were perceived absences. And then just another question again regarding synchronous and asynchronous instruction on remote days for our students. I'm hearing from parents that their understanding is that their students are only receiving instruction, synchronous instruction on their, if they are attending school on their hybrid days, their remote, their days when they're in-person learning. And so, that there may be some confusion still surrounding that. And I know that there was an update, I believe, from the Board of Regents recently, even for how that might look. As we all know, it's very fluid, and just wonder if we might get an update on that. And again, to understand how this is being communicated to parents. And I want to wish everyone also a happy Thanksgiving, and thanks for the reports tonight. Thank you, Mr. Ells.
I just want to ask the board again about so we're asking, David, you want to report on synchronous, asynchronous?
I don't know if it has to be a formal report, but I think it would help the parents understand. Obviously, if we receive it as a board, we then have the knowledge, but maybe there's still some confusion for parents surrounding that and how it looks and how we actually pull that off.
And I'm going to guess that you've already advised parents to contact their building principals with regard to the attendance questions and the engagement, their concerns about student engagement.
And you just did again.
Yes. And the reason I said that is because I want to remind folks that that's really the best point of contact to try to clarify your concerns and addressed issues. If there truly is an issue and not a misunderstanding, that's really where you need to be to get things straightened out. And our folks are really good if they understand the issue. So I just as a public service announcement, don't forget to reach out to your children's teachers and or building principal with questions, because they will try to bring clarity and or resolution to issues that they may not be aware of or be perceiving that there's an issue.
And maybe, the question really is how are we communicating attendance for it perhaps might be the days when our students are not expected to physically be in our buildings, but maybe absent remotely. Just what is that procedure for letting parents know before a report card that I think that was probably a better way to present that question.
Okay, that helps, Dave. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, I'm looking at Mrs. Cooper.
Okay, so to Mr. Cordone's point, which is really great, I was thinking that we get only such a few amount of people that actually watch our board presentations, that if we were able to take those questions for asynchronous and synchronous learning and attendance policy, and maybe do that in a daily video and push that out socially or through the app, that might be a really good way to get it out to the community a little bit more widespread. If Mr. Cordone is okay with that, I think he said you didn't necessarily need a presentation. Okay, great, thank you. I know how much you guys love the daily video request I always make. I also wanted to touch base. This is something that's important to me, and I know Mrs. Griffin has talked to you about as well, as we had been doing some cards for our soldiers for our Christmas. And I know that the email I got from my children's teacher said that it needed to be in by this Wednesday. However, school's not in session. Do we know if that's been extended or if there's a way to turn those cards in that maybe kids were making at home?
Yes. Do you want me to answer?
Go ahead.
We left the big ballot box out at the junior high, And I spoke to Senator Ritchie's office yesterday. So they've extended the date. And my plan is to get them probably Monday afternoon down to her office. And we're going to put it back out on our Facebook page, and a reminder to everybody, hopefully over the weekend, we'll have some great artwork going on and load that box right up.
Great. Thank you so much, Mrs. Perry. I appreciate it. And then the last thing I have is for Mr. Els. I just wanted to let you know that I've got numerous people reaching out to me to express the appreciation both for you and all of your staff and all of the hard work. You've done a tremendous job, and the whole entire community thanks you. So thank you so much, and please pass that on to all of your staff working so hard. Oh, I lied. I have one more. Go ahead, Mr. Els.
No, thank you for that.
All right. I lied. I have one more for Mr. Carroll. The video report card from the state is really interesting, but I'm wondering how we're going to be able to communicate that with our community, and maybe if that was possible to do a daily video or something like that of each segment there and what's important so they can find that information. Yes. Okay, great. And that's it. And just happy Thanksgiving, everybody, and stay safe and stay healthy.
Let's see. Mrs. Abelgore.
Well, it seems like everybody's pretty much touched base on everything this evening, so I will ditto off of all of that. But I did have just a couple of quick questions, just more so of an update. And Mr. Palvino, you may not have that this evening, but I know that our other extracurricular activities started earlier in the month. Can you let us know how maybe that's been going for some of the clubs that have been meeting virtual, and maybe just push that out there for us so we're not forgetting those folks either. And has there been an SRO update lately? Have we had any more meetings on that, or is it something
we
where
are meeting this is it Tuesday? It's on the agenda. It's
oh, is that part of that safety?
Yep, it's the that is the safety and security virtual meeting. It's at 3:00 on Tuesday. I did gather information from a district that had the third model. We had looked at a traditional SRO model. We looked at a much more a very different restorative practice model, and then the model that we'll talk about this coming Tuesday will be more of that a hybrid model, similar to perhaps the district that you work in.
Okay, just curious about that. Thank you. I want to thank you guys so much. You guys have got to be exhausted. So I hope that over the holiday you get some great relaxation. Hopefully the phones will stay low and you guys can just enjoy your Thanksgiving. So thank you so much for all you do. And I also want to thank our staff out there, because with all of the bouncing around with this school's in and our staffs are doing remote with our students, I think, and I have heard from parents that they have been doing a fantastic job. So I just want to say thank you again to how hard the staff here in Fulton works, and to wish them a happy Thanksgiving as well. Thank you.
Mr. DeJalorme.
Yes. I just wanted to comment on Lanigan as well. I go by there on a daily basis. And it was nice to see the fence come down, and that you're able to drive up in there now.
Oh.
Yeah, the fence is down.
I haven't been there today.
And for you, Tim, they might start early, but they're also gone by about 2:30, 3 o'clock. So
Yeah, no union.
they're not putting in any extra time.
I know.
While they're there, they do work very, very hard. I want to thank Brian's team and all the teachers for what appears on the surface to be a fluid transition when you go from in-person teaching to this totally virtual, at least from my perspective, what I'm seeing. And then the last thing I have is that new voice on the robocalls. The first time I heard it, it started a little twinge, but by the end, it was nice and smooth, and it was welcome to hear a different voice. Thank you.
All righty. Well, let's see. Yes, the Lanigan project looks great. I'm most excited about how we are increasing safety for our kids getting in and out of school. To me, that's just immeasurable. I want to make certain to thank. It's Thanksgiving, so in light of that, I want to thank you, Mr. Polvino. I want to thank your administrative team, your teachers, all of your support staff. And I want to thank our kids and their parents for making this difficult period of time successful, reasonably successful, I think, for most of our kiddos. We set out, our mission was to get our kids in front of teachers as often as possible. I think that you've done a very good job of that with all of the efforts from everyone. It's taken everyone. This has truly taken the village. And again, I think it shows because I am hearing very positive things about how much better our kids are doing compared to last spring, how much happier the parents are with what our teachers have been able to bring to the table this fall. And it didn't happen without a lot of effort and thought, and everyone did a lot of learning and continues to learn, and I appreciate that. And I just can't say to you enough how grateful I am. I am very grateful for all of the extra work, Mr. Els, that you have taken on to take care of us, to help us to be as safe as possible. And again, to help us meet that mission of keeping our kids in front of their teachers as much as possible. We couldn't do it without you. I had no idea what your job in that arena was going to look like on the health side, the COVID side, but wow, it's really a big deal. You have done it without complaint. You've done it with a smile on your face, at least in front of me, and I'm grateful for that. But most grateful, and I want the community to know and everyone to know that, it takes a lot of effort. You are dealing with folks that aren't used to dealing with this themselves. And that we have our own personal frustrations as a school district. We want things that maybe they don't want, but you've done a good job of conveying what our needs are and helping us to, again, meet the mission. So for all of that, I am grateful. I'm grateful for everyone in this district. And Nick, you said it, well, everybody's just doing such a fantastic job. I hope everyone gets a chance for some downtime. However you celebrate Thanksgiving, just some time to take a breath and take a moment and thank yourselves for the good job each of you have done. And I look forward to coming back and trying to get some more days in. That's the goal, and we'll keep working to that end. So thank you one and all. Mrs. Perry, as always, couldn't do it without you. I want to thank you for the reminder, Mrs. Cooper, about our Christmas cards for our military persons. And so anybody that can help out with that, and that big red box is now considered a veteran or a military mailbox. No envelopes, just the cards. Drop them off, and they will be gotten to Senator Ritchie. It's a great thing that she's done, and I'm really glad that we as a district can support her. So with that said, I need someone to move item 7.02.
Move it. Oh,
Second.
Any discussion? We're going to, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm looking, okay, we have a majority here. Yep. Everybody. And after a 5-minute break, we'll come back and the board's going to take care of some business in executive session. When we come out of executive session, we have one resolution to deal with. And then that will be our meeting for today. So thank you to those that attended today. And if you're watching, have a great Thanksgiving and be safe, stay healthy. See you in 5 minutes. All right, so I have resolution 7.03.
Move it.
Second.
Discussion? Let's see if I see everybody. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so show of hands if you're in favor. Please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, it's a 7-0-0. Vote. And you know what? Lynn, you seconded it?
I did.
Who moved it?
No, Lynn moved it
Oh, Lynn moved it.
and Tim seconded it.
Thank you.
I'm taking notes.
Thank you. I use all the help I can get. All right, folks, this is it. So enjoy the rest of your week, and good to see y'all. Stay healthy.
Happy
Be
Thanksgiving.
careful.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Stay safe.
Thanksgiving. Bye, guys. Happy Thanksgiving.
Bye-bye.